The Israeli military says it has begun a new ground operation in Rafah in southern Gaza. It comes after another day of airstrikes and ground operations in the north. Earlier on Thursday, Hamas had fired rockets at central Israel. No injuries were reported. In Gaza, Palestinians face dire conditions as they struggle with the aftermath of the latest round of strikes.
While people were out in the streets in Gaza City, the sudden violence and escalation by the Israeli military left many in shock. Massive Israeli airstrikes shattered the 2-month ceasefire in the early morning hours of Tuesday. Hundreds have been killed or injured since, according to local health officials.
Wars are unpredictable. We saw how quickly things escalated. It could happen again at any moment. Children are walking in the street, yet it is really hard to feel safe.
The situation is extremely difficult, as the days have returned to the pre-ceasefire period, marked by martyrs, injuries and destruction, not to mention fear. The bombing has been intense, forcing yet another wave of displacement. As people move from dangerous areas to safer ones, we have returned to the pre-truce reality.
Evacuation orders issued by the Israeli military on Tuesday in several areas in the north, east and south forced thousands of Palestinians to move. Meanwhile, the military moved tanks and ground troops back into parts of the Netzarim corridor, separating northern and southern Gaza, and into several other areas. Here at makeshift street stalls, people say that the prices of basic food items have skyrocketed in recent weeks. Israel closed its crossings and stopped aid from entering after the first official phase of the ceasefire agreement ended in early March. Long queues at bakeries are common.
Do you know how long I've waited for this? I have been waiting in line for bread for 3 to 4 hours, standing here in desperation. This is a tragedy no one could have foreseen. Do I have to stand here for 4 hours for bread? What can we do? We need a solution to the Palestinian issue. We need aid to enter, the crossings to open, and we need life to return to normal.
But nothing is back to normal for the people of Gaza. Many here say they already face the daily challenge of surviving on the rubble of their former homes without running water, electricity or reliable communications. Now, with the renewed Israeli offensive, the situation is becoming more dangerous and unbearable by the day.
And we're now joined by Dr. Mohammed Mustafa, an Australian doctor currently in Gaza. So since the ceasefire stopped to hold, what is the situation at the hospital where you are?
It's quite catastrophic here. We have many women and children that are camped out in tents because the hospitals are already overflowing with injured patients. We have little to no medicine. We have little to no antibiotics left. We only have 3 ventilators for the whole north of Gaza. And obviously, as you can imagine, with complex traumas and brain injuries, we're unable to intubate many people. And we have had multiple people since those initial attacks die as a result of their injuries. We are really lacking in resources, medical equipment, and even basic things like blood pressure cuffs, monitoring people's oxygen levels, and even oxygen cylinders. We are critically low in it.
Now, the Red Crescent says less than half of its emergency vehicles are operational in Gaza due to fuel shortages. How are you experiencing a shortage of supplies?
So because in Gaza we have very few doctors who are specialized, they are not spread around. They are only in certain areas. So to get patients with head injuries or orthopedic injuries, they need to be transported from one hospital to another. And unfortunately, because we don't have the fuel to transport these sick patients that need specialist treatment, they are also succumbing to their wounds when they could survive even in these dire conditions. But because of the fuel shortage as well, we're struggling to transport patients effectively to centres that could look after them.
Now, you've touched upon this earlier, but from a medical perspective, what do you need the most right now?
We need... Sorry, there's gunfire going off in the background. We need a ceasefire. We need to go back to the ceasefire that was already in agreement. We need a surge of humanitarian aid here. We need a surge of medical aid here. And this is the safest thing and the best thing for the 2 million people in Gaza, and also for the hostages who are also suffering at this stage as well. We need a ceasefire for everybody's sake, both the hostages and the children of Gaza as well.
Now, evacuations have also been ordered for civilians in North and South Gaza. How is that playing out?
Well, already food supplies are very low, but when you have an influx of people coming from one area to another, the already small amount of food supply is dwindling very rapidly. There are little to no areas of shelter. Yesterday it was raining heavily and it was very cold. And with the lack of tents and infrastructure and mobile homes, we're getting now children that are coming in with hypothermia and are also freezing to death as well. So from every angle, whether it's airstrikes, whether it's fuel shortages, whether it's food shortages, the children of Gaza especially are suffering right now.
Dr. Mohammed Mustafa there, joining us from Gaza. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.